my first time in Boulder, Colorado. We're on our way to David Brown's house, co-founder and co-CEO of Techstars. We're going to spend the morning with him, drive around town a little bit, and talk about the tech scene of Boulder and what they're doing with Techstars. You grew up in Canada.
Yep, grew up in Montreal, born and raised in Montreal.
So how did you end up in Colorado?
It's a funny story. So David Cohen and I started our first business. We were roommates in Miami, Florida. And we had a third co-founder as well. And at some point we had all sort of scattered. I was in New York, David was in Arizona, Bob was still in Miami. And we got this business going and we got a little bit of funding. And we knew we had to live in the same place. This is in the early 90s, so telecommuting wasn't really an option. And we went to a pizzeria Uno in Tempe, Arizona, where David lived, and we sat around, ordering some pizza and talking about where do we want to live. We're three single guys in our 20s. What we did was on a napkin, we wrote out all the different places that we might be interested in living. Everybody could put anything. And then we all sort of had veto power on everybody else's terrible ideas. So we scratched out whatever those were. And Boulder was the only one left. And so that's how we wound up here.
Crazy to think that one conversation led you guys here and what you guys developed here since.
Yeah.
Would you have thought what you've guys done in Boulder could have happened in any city?
I do think that there are great entrepreneurs everywhere, and that any city can do the same thing as what's happened to Boulder. In fact, I spend a lot of my time traveling the world, and almost everywhere I go, I meet fantastic entrepreneurs and other people who are interested in building entrepreneurial ecosystems in their part of the world. And that's a big part of what I think we've come to become really good at Techstars is just help grow and foster entrepreneurs and entrepreneurial ecosystems all around the world.
What would you say if you narrowed it down to kind of three tenets of what you need to build an ecosystem?
Yeah, so the definitive book on that is Startup Communities.
Yep.
By Brad, our co-founder, Brad Feld. And that book has gotten a lot of attention and has done really great, I think, at helping communities build. The first tenet of the Boulder thesis is it has to be entrepreneurial led. This isn't something that can be mandated by government. The second one that I'll mention is it takes a really long time. In fact, the way Brad likes to describe it is it takes 20 years from whenever. It takes 20 years from today. And so we've been at it in Boulder for 10 years or so. We got 20 years to go. And if you have that frame of reference that it's going to take a while, you're not so disappointed when some early initiatives don't necessarily immediately pay off. You feel like you're in it for the long haul.
How about capital?
Capital is absolutely important, and both angel and VC presence in a startup community is going to provide the fuel in order to help companies continue to grow and scale. Now, they may get their capital elsewhere. You may travel somewhere to a VC and pitch, and that might be okay. But certainly from an angel standpoint, it's often more helpful if somebody's there locally and will come meet you at a coffee shop and have a cup of coffee with you and talk about your business and hopefully invest.
Coffee sounds like a great idea.
You want to go get a cup?
Yeah, let's go get a cup of coffee.
Let's do it. There's a great coffee shop here not far away that is one of my favorites.
Talking about entrepreneurs, what are the characteristics, founders of these companies, what are the common characteristics that make someone really successful in a Techstars program and once they graduate or post Techstars program?
Yeah, interesting. Entrepreneurs are born, I believe, and you sort of have that little gene that makes you unemployable elsewhere. It makes you maybe more susceptible to take risk.
Yep.
And a few other factors. If you're doing it because it seems glamorous, you've seen the Social Network movie, and you think starting the next Facebook is going to make you really rich and allow you to have your own hours. Those people are never successful. Mm-hmm. We call them entrepreneurs.
Yep.
But true entrepreneurs sort of have that gene, and the really successful ones are usually solving a problem that they're passionate about. And that could be big or small. Usually you hear, it's true because you hear words like, this thing was really driving me crazy and I just had to fix it.
Yep.
Or my loved one had this terrible problem and I just want to fix it so nobody else has to go through what we went through.
Yep.
When you hear those kinds of words, you know that they have passion behind what they're doing. Mm-hmm. And that helps you get through the long hours and nights and weekends and no pay and no recognition and all the ups and downs of running a startup, and it's probably a better indicator of success than almost anything else.
So the people that are entrepreneurs, they have it in their genes, their DNA, but what are some of those elements that you think cause some of those entrepreneurs to fail?
Well, it's funny you say that because my first reaction was that is one of the characteristics of entrepreneurs is they don't let anything get in their way. Mm. They figure out how to plow through walls or dig under them or go over them or whatever. Yep. But I think if to name one thing, I do think entrepreneurs have happy ears. And what I mean by that is
happy ears.
And what I mean by that is when they're talking to, let's say, an investor, and an investor says, come back in a few weeks. I think that could be interesting. An entrepreneur will hear, that guy's interested in investing. Right? And we're built to, we're natural born optimists.
Yep.
You sort of have to be, because you're going to get a whole bunch of mud slung at you.
Yep.
And you sort of have to be able to see the bright side in everything. And so sometimes, most of the time, those happy ears serve you well because you're able to sort of overcome obstacles, but sometimes you have to put on the realistic ears and make sure you understand what's being told to you.
When a new company, a startup, is developing their executive team, do you see common problems or common mishaps that they do in the early days of establishing that first leadership team, first management team?
Yeah, and actually I'll start with the founding team, because typically most successful startups anyway have more than one founder.
Yep.
And we found that through our data that solo founders are less likely to be successful than a company that has two or more founders.
Okay.
And the biggest reason that startups fail, might be a little counterintuitive, is co-founder conflict.
Yep.
So you need that co-founder, but you better like that co-founder. And there was a study that was done that I believe said that about 60% of startups fail because of co-founder issues. Not because they ran out of money, not because they didn't have a good product, not because they couldn't find customers, but they just didn't get
have the
along.
same vision? You think is part of it? Same alignment of vision and where they want to go?
Not necessarily. Sometimes one of the co-founders is the visionary co-founder and one is the executor.
Yep.
And that is very true of my co-founding relationship with David. He's much more vision, I'm more execution. Not that we're not both, but that is how I would characterize ourselves. No, I think, sometimes you sort of have to figure out who you are as people and what are what is another person's ups and downs, and just sort of really be in sync to know, for instance, if you're even keel and your co-founder has highs and lows, to know when they're at a low, maybe they're at a low for a personal reason, and just give them some space and help, bring them up so that you can leave them alone and that they can get past whatever's bothering them. And knowing that about another person is much more helpful than getting in their face and saying, what the hell's wrong with you? Right? And because that just leads to tension. So a co-founder relationship is very, very similar to to a relationship that you might have with your significant other. people have good days and bad days, and you need to learn to read each other's moods and know each other's strengths and weaknesses, and know when to engage and know when to back off. And founders don't put enough time into it. We put time into our personal relationships, hopefully. But sometimes founders don't put enough time into their co-founder relationship, and it leads to trouble.
So that's the founding team and relationships. And then once the founding team, brings the product, gets traction, starts to grow, they start to see that they're going to have to build a real organization. What are some of the common errors you see when they're developing that management team?
I think the biggest thing there is that, when you build a management team, you don't want to clone yourself or your co-founders. And as you continue to grow an organization, it might be a bit of a job for some people, and they might have expectations like benefits that maybe didn't matter to you and your co-founder when you were just this scrappy little company. And so as you sort of establish a management team and establish a larger organization, you have to be cognizant of the fact that not everybody has the same motivations as you, and understand what their needs are and recognize that it's okay for their needs to be different than your needs.
All right, where are we at?
We are at, it's called Chautauqua Park here.
And these mountains are called,
and these are the Flatirons.
The Flatirons.
Yeah.
When you think of like innovation and corporate innovation, and tying, like a Amazon to startups, which I don't know, maybe that's easier, or tying a Target to startups, what's the best way to do corporate innovation?
Yeah, I mean, every corporation is different, right? And, Amazon certainly has a very entrepreneurial-minded, an entrepreneurial mindset. They're not that far away from their startup days.
Exactly.
Whereas other companies that have been around for 100, 200 years might have institutional calcification, where they're really not moving very quickly. And it's been okay to move slowly for a long, long time, and so nobody in the organization sort of remembers how to move quickly. And I think what happens is, and many of the corporations that we talk to talk about, the fear of being Uberized, and what they mean by that is if you're in the taxi industry and Uber comes along, suddenly you're scrambling. If you're in the hotel industry and Airbnb comes along, you're scrambling. If you're Blockbuster and Netflix comes along, you're scrambling. And companies are beginning to realize that startups are able to get so much done and disrupt entire industries. And it starts super early with just a couple of people and an idea, and then they move really quickly, and the next thing you know, you've been Uberized. And so I think that's a big part of what we provide, is provide that connective tissue between large corporations and startups to be able to help them interface with startup ecosystems and be able to
is it really engaging with the executive teams of those?
100%. And these programs are most successful when they come from the top. When we ran a program with Disney, it was Bob Iger, the CEO of Disney, that came through the program and found Sphero and said, man, this thing could be applicable for the upcoming Star Wars movie, right? The Force Awakens. They made the BB-8 toy.
Yep, I remember.
And it was coming through that Techstars program that Disney and Iger was able to identify that. How else are you going to, what else are you going to do if you're a startup? Call 1-800-DISNEY and say, do you have a Star Wars movie coming out?
Yeah.
Needs a little round rolly thing.
When you look at the greater Techstar community with companies that have gone through the program, Techstar employees and mentors, how big is that?
Yeah, I mean, just in terms of founders, investors, and mentors. I think it's 7,000 or 8,000 people. When you extend that to the broader community, which includes all the community leaders that run our startup weekends and startup weeks all around the world, the participants in those programs, subscribers to our digest that we send out that talk about local entrepreneurial meetups in cities all around the world, it's well over 100,000 people. It's several. I shouldn't even say that. It's close to 1 million people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The impact this has created is unbelievable. Did you guys ever imagine when you thought of this idea that it would actually grow to this?
I wish I could say we were incredible visionaries and this was the exact plan all along. But the honest truth is that in many ways this was an experiment in little old Boulder, Colorado, to see if we could build our entrepreneurial ecosystem here and maybe have a job that didn't require us to travel so much for a change compared to our previous ventures. And, that last part certainly has not wound up being true.
What is the focus of Techstars today? Like, if there's one kind of overarching focus, maybe 2018 going into 2019, what is it? What's on your mind?
Yeah, so, what we're doing is we're building the worldwide network to help entrepreneurs succeed. That is the phrase that we use both internally and externally to make sure that we're all aligned on, what our mission is. Because it's a worldwide network, we are expanding and we are adding more locations. We have accelerators in 40 different locations. We have startup weekends in 150 countries all around the world. And I think that there's more opportunity to continue to do even more of that, to have even more expansion and to reach entrepreneurs in parts of the world that we haven't yet been able to reach. And that's very exciting.
So developing a worldwide network to help entrepreneurs succeed is a huge mission.
Yep.
What the current state of United States right now, anything blocking you from doing that that's really challenging?
Maybe I'm an entrepreneur that has happy ears too. I don't see challenges, I only see opportunities.
How about immigration?
So that is a very interesting point. I think that it is tough under our current administration for foreign entrepreneurs to be a beacon of entrepreneurship. It's in fact my personal story. I was born in Canada and was attracted to the mentality of American entrepreneurs and wanted to work at a startup in the United States, and so chose to move here. And I was lucky enough to be able to do that. And there's many entrepreneurs now that either can't, and we should be inclusive of allowing more people into this country that want to chase that dream. It's to all our benefit, and I think that it's been to the benefit of some of our overseas programs or out of United States programs. Our programs in Toronto and Montreal will likely reap benefits from immigrant entrepreneurs that don't feel welcome in the United States. And France, which typically may not have been viewed as a great place to start a company, has a new president that is promoting sort of startup nation and encouraging more entrepreneurship in that country. And as an American now, I'm sorry to see that. I would like to see all countries be able to promote entrepreneurship and be a welcoming place for everyone.
5 years from now, where do you see Techstars?
I have to think of where I thought Techstars would be 5 years ago and calibrate my own ability to predict the future.
Is it the same trajectory, you think?
I do.
Or do you think it's exponentially growing?
It is. That is the trajectory that we have been on. We have been on an exponential growth trajectory, and it's really hard. Somebody once told me that anywhere on an exponential line, wherever you stand, the past looks flat, almost flat, and the future looks almost vertical. And that is how it feels sometimes. But I think more expansion into other geographies, more expansion into other ways to help entrepreneurs be successful. That's what we're trying to achieve, and I think there's a lot of work to be done. And I think Techstars 5 years from now will have expanded quite significantly from where we are today.
Everything you've done has never been an easy job. The startups, Techstars, I'm sure all of it's been fun and not fun at many given moments, but why do you do it? Like what drives you to do this?
Well, I'm a lifelong entrepreneur. I'm, coming up here on 54 years old. I've never had a job interview in my entire life. And all I've ever wanted to do is pay it forward to other entrepreneurs and help them be successful as well. They're my people. Kindred spirits is how I would put it. Everywhere I travel, anywhere in the world, I meet other people that just sort of feel like my people. And we have the same gene.